Chapter 6, Part 1. 3 days after meeting Emma, I arrived at my office early. I was reviewing invoices when someone knocked on the open door. "Come in," I called. A man wearing a gray jacket stepped inside and showed me an identification card. "My name is Ryan Brooks." I stood. "What can I do for you?" "I'm an investigative journalist." My stomach tightened. "If you're here about my old company, I've already answered enough questions." "I know," he said calmly. "That's not why I'm here." "Then why are you here?" "I think you were framed." I stared at him. "What did you just say?" "I've spent months investigating Daniel Reed." I slowly sat down. "Why?" "Several former employees contacted me." "What did they tell you?" "They claimed money disappeared before your company collapsed." I nodded. "That's true. They also claimed you never had access to those transfers." I looked at him carefully. "Who sent you?" "No one." "Then why help me?" He placed a thick folder on my desk. "Because I hate watching guilty people escape." I opened the folder. Inside were bank records, emails, and printed messages. My hands began to shake. "Where did you get these?" "Sources." I turned another page. Several transfers carried Daniel's digital approval code. "I've never seen these." "You weren't supposed to." My voice dropped. "Does this prove he stole the money?" "It strongly suggests it." I leaned back. "For months, everyone called me a thief." "I know. My father's name was destroyed." "I know. My life fell apart." Ryan looked directly at me. "That's why I didn't stop digging." Before I could answer, my phone rang. The screen showed Grace Lawson. I answered immediately. "Grace? I was about to call you anyway." "You're on speaker." "Good. Then Mr. Brooks can hear me too." Ryan smiled slightly. "I thought you two might know each other." Grace continued, "We've discovered additional financial records." I looked at Ryan. "He has evidence too." "Then we're finally getting somewhere," Grace replied. My heartbeat quickened. "Does this mean Daniel can be charged?" "Not yet." The hope inside me faded. "We need stronger proof." Ryan opened another section of the folder. "What about these emails?" Grace paused. "Can you send copies?" "I already did this morning." Another silence. Finally, Grace spoke again. "If they're authentic, everything changes." I looked out the window. For the first time since losing my company, I felt the truth getting closer. Ryan closed the folder. "This isn't over." I nodded. "No. It has only begun." As he stood to leave, he stopped beside the door. "One more thing." "What is it?" "Be careful." I frowned. "Why?" "If Daniel realizes people are uncovering the truth, he won't stay quiet." A cold feeling ran through me. Months ago, I had lost everything because I trusted the wrong man. Now I wondered how far that same man would go to protect the lies he had built. After Ryan left, I couldn't focus on work. I kept staring at the folder on my desk. Sophia walked in and noticed my expression. "What happened?" I slid the folder toward her. "Read it." She opened the first page. Her eyes widened. "These are Daniel's approval codes." "I know. If this evidence is real, he can't hide forever." "I've been waiting a long time to hear someone say that." She closed the folder gently. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know." She pulled up a chair. "Yes, you do." I looked at her. "You're afraid." I am. Why? Because reopening this chapter means reopening every wound. She nodded. That's true. I finally found peace. And now you're worried about losing it. Exactly. She smiled softly. Then don't do this for revenge. What should I do it for? For the truth. Her words settled my racing mind. Later that afternoon, I met Grace Lawson at her office. She greeted me with a firm handshake. I'm glad you came. I almost didn't. I expected that. She spread several documents across her desk. We verified most of Ryan's evidence. I leaned forward. And it matches the bank's internal records. I felt my heart pounding. So Daniel really transferred the money. Yes. And he used my company credentials. He did. I closed my eyes. I knew I wasn't crazy. Grace looked at me kindly. You never were. She handed me another document. Victor Hale has agreed to cooperate. I looked up. He has. He admitted he ignored several financial warnings because he wanted the project finished quickly. So he knew something was wrong. He suspected it. Why speak now? Because the investigation is getting bigger. I let out a slow breath. Too late to protect himself. Grace nodded. Exactly. The next morning, Ryan Brooks called. I have news. I'm listening. Authorities have officially opened a criminal investigation. I sat down. Already? Your evidence pushed everything forward. I smiled for the first time that day. What happens now? They'll interview everyone involved. Even me. Especially you. 2 days later, I entered the investigation office. An officer greeted me. Mr. Walker. Yes. Please have a seat. For nearly 2 hours, I answered every question honestly. I explained the missing payroll. The fake approvals. The collapsing project. Emma's disappearance. Daniel's confession. When the interview ended, the officer stood. Thank you. Is that enough? It's a strong beginning. Outside the building, reporters waited. Cameras pointed toward me. One reporter asked, "Do you still claim you were innocent?" I looked straight ahead. I don't have to claim it anymore. Another shouted, "Do you want revenge?" I shook my head. I want the truth. Nothing more. Nothing less. That evening, Sophia smiled as she read the latest headlines. The story is changing. I sat beside her. What does it say? She turned the screen toward me. New evidence raises serious questions about Daniel Reed's business dealings. I stared at the headline. Months ago, the world believed every lie spoken about me. Now people were finally asking the right questions. Somewhere across the city, Daniel was probably reading the same article. For the first time since he stole my company, I imagined fear replacing his confidence. The truth had started moving. And this time, nothing was going to stop it. Chapter 7. The investigation moved faster than anyone expected. One morning, I was reviewing blueprints when Ryan Brooks called. Ryan, I answered. Turn on the news. Why? Just do it. I picked up the remote in my office and switched on the television. A reporter stood outside Daniel's company headquarters. The Financial Crimes Unit has entered the building this morning, she announced. Investigators are collecting documents and electronic records connected to the ongoing fraud investigation. I couldn't take my eyes off the screen. Ryan spoke again. Are you watching? I am. They finally got the search warrant. I let out a slow breath. I never thought I'd see this day. It's only the beginning. The call ended, but I kept watching. Employees carried boxes out of the building while investigators moved in and out through the front doors. Sophia knocked softly before entering. I thought I'd find you here. I pointed at the television. Look. She smiled. I already saw. They're really investigating him. They are. I sat down slowly. It doesn't feel real. She placed a hand on my shoulder. Sometimes justice takes time. A few hours later, Grace Lawson called. I have an update. I'm listening. Several executives have started cooperating. They're talking. They're protecting themselves. I nodded. What about Daniel? He's denying everything. Of course he is. But the evidence keeps growing. After the call, I returned to work, but I couldn't concentrate. Every memory of the past year came rushing back. The empty office. The unpaid workers. Emma's goodbye. My father's company disappearing overnight. Mr. Carter noticed my silence when he stopped by later that afternoon. You've been thinking too much. I can't help it. He pulled up a chair. Tell me. I dreamed about my father last night. What happened? He didn't say anything. What did he do? He just smiled. Mr. Carter smiled too. Maybe that's enough. I hope so. My phone buzzed again. This time, the screen showed an unfamiliar number. I answered carefully. Hello. A tired voice replied. Ryan, it's Daniel. Every muscle in my body tightened. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. Finally, he whispered, please don't hang up. I closed my eyes. What do you want? I need to talk to you. There isn't much left to say. There is. His voice sounded nothing like the confident man I remembered. It sounded frightened. For the first time in our lives, I realized the man who had destroyed mine was finally afraid of losing his own. I stayed silent for a moment. Talk, I said. Daniel let out a slow breath. I made mistakes. You destroyed my life. I know. You stole my father's company. I know. You lied to everyone. I know. You took Emma from me. The line went quiet. Finally, he whispered, I'm sorry. His apology felt strangely small. You should have thought about that before. I wasn't thinking. No, I replied. You were. He didn't answer. I trusted you like a brother. I never meant for it to go this far. It went exactly where your choices led. His voice shook. They're going to arrest me. I looked out the office window. I can't stop that. I'm asking for your help. My help? If you tell them I didn't mean to hurt you. I interrupted him. The truth already speaks louder than I ever could. He sounded desperate. I'll lose everything. I closed my eyes. I already did. Another long silence followed. Then he quietly said, I understand. No, I answered. Now you're beginning to. Chapter 8. 2 months passed after Daniel's arrest. Life finally felt quiet again. One morning, I unlocked my office and found Sophia waiting with a surprised smile. You look happy, I said. I have a reason. What happened? Someone wants to meet you. Who? She handed me a business card. I read the name and frowned. Victor Hale. She nodded. He called yesterday. What does he want? He wouldn't say. I leaned back in my chair. The last time I met Victor, my life changed forever. I know. You think I should go? I think you should hear him out. I looked at the card for several seconds. I'm not sure. Sophia smiled gently. You're not the same man anymore. That afternoon, I walked into Victor's office. He stood as soon as he saw me. Ryan. Mr. Hale. Thank you for coming. I almost didn't. I wouldn't have blamed you. He motioned toward a chair. Please. I sat down but stayed alert. Victor folded his hands. I owe you an apology. I waited. I ignored warning signs. You did. I cared more about finishing my project than protecting honest people. You did. I helped create the situation that destroyed your company. I looked directly at him. Why tell me this now? Because I was wrong. His voice carried no pride. Only regret. I've spent months thinking about my decisions. So have I. He nodded. I imagine you have. He opened a folder and slid it across the table. I want to offer you something. I frowned. I'm listening. I recently bought another construction company. I stayed quiet. It needs new leadership. I looked at him carefully. And I want you to run it. I almost laughed. You're serious? Completely. You want the man whose company collapsed to lead yours? I want the man who rebuilt himself from nothing. I stared at the folder. The salary was more money than I had ever imagined earning. The company was large. The benefits were incredible. Years ago, I would have signed the papers without asking another question. Victor noticed my silence. You've earned this opportunity. I closed the folder. I'm not sure that's true. It is. Why? Because you learned what most successful. Victor leaned forward. Finish what I started, he said. Lead this company with the honesty I failed to show. I rested my hands on the folder. A year ago, I would have accepted before you finished speaking. What changed? I did. He watched me quietly. I spent months rebuilding my life. I know. I learned something during that time. What was it? A shortcut that looks like success can become a trap. Victor nodded. You're talking about our first contract. I'm talking about every decision I made because I was desperate. He lowered his eyes. I understand. I pushed the folder back across the table. I can't accept. He looked surprised. May I ask why? Because I finally built something that belongs to me. You'd earn far more money here. I know. You'd have hundreds of employees. I know. You'd become one of the biggest names in the industry. I smiled. I don't need to become the biggest. What do you need? I need to stay the man I've worked so hard to become. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then Victor smiled. I was hoping you'd give that answer. I raised an eyebrow. You were? Yes. Why? Because now I know I judged your character correctly. He stood and offered his hand. I'm still sorry for my part in your pain. I shook it. I believe you. As I left the building, my phone rang. It was Sophia. How did it go? I turned him down. She laughed softly. I thought you might. You don't think I'm crazy? Not at all. Most people would have taken that job. Most people aren't. Chapter 9, Part 1. 3 years passed before I realized how different my life had become. One morning, I unlocked the door to my company and smiled as familiar voices filled the office. "Morning, boss," one of my employees called. I laughed. "Morning. How's the Wilson project?" "Finished ahead of schedule." "Great work." As I walked through the office, I noticed something that once seemed impossible. People trusted me again. Not because of my words. Because of my actions. Sophia stepped out of the conference room carrying 2 coffee cups. "I had a feeling you'd forget breakfast." I smiled. "Some things never change." She handed me a cup. "I'll keep reminding you." "I appreciate that." She looked around the busy office. "You've built something special." "We built it." She shook her head. "You made the choice to stand back up." "I had help." "You accepted it." I nodded. "That's true." Mr. Carter walked through the front door a few minutes later. He looked around proudly. "This place gets bigger every time I visit." I laughed. "It feels that way." He pointed at a group of young workers. "They respect you." "I try to earn that every day." He smiled. "Your father would be proud." Those words stayed with me long after he left. Later that afternoon, a nervous young man knocked on my office door. "Can I come in?" "Of course." He stepped inside. "My name is Ethan." "Nice to meet you, Ethan. I started here last week." "I remember." He looked embarrassed. "I made a mistake on today's paperwork." I smiled. "Everyone makes mistakes." "I thought you might fire me." I remembered another version of myself. Scared. Broken. Certain that one failure could end everything. I stood and walked around my desk. "Let me tell you something." He listened carefully. "One bad decision should never define your whole life." His eyes widened. I needed to hear that. I did too, once. He smiled with relief. "Thank you." After he left, I looked out the window. Years earlier, I had heard those same words from Mr. Carter. Now I was passing them to someone else. The lesson had come full circle. Just before closing time, Sophia stepped into my office again. "I have something to ask you." "What is it?" She looked nervous for the first time since I had known her. "I've waited long enough." My heart beat faster. She reached into her pocket. I realized this conversation was about to change my life once again. Sophia smiled as she opened her hand. Instead of a ring, she held a small brass key. I laughed. "You scared me." "Good. What is the key for?" She placed it in my hand. "Come with me." We drove across town without saying much. Finally, she stopped in front of an old brick building. I looked at the sign. It was empty. "What is this?" She smiled. "Open the door." I unlocked it. Inside stood a bright workshop with fresh paint, new tools, and wide windows. I looked around in surprise. "What did you do?" She folded her arms. "I remembered something you once said." "What was that?" "You wanted young people to have a place where they could learn without being judged." I slowly turned in a circle. "You built this?" "We built it." I looked at her. "You planned all of this?" 4 months. I couldn't find the right words. She laughed. "That's a first." I smiled. "It's perfect." She stepped closer. "I have one more question." "I'm listening." She took both of my hands. "We've built a business together." "We have." "We've built a future together." "We have." Will you keep building it with me for the rest of our lives? Emotion filled my chest. Is that your way of proposing? She laughed. It is. I smiled through tears. Then my answer is yes. She hugged me tightly. I was hoping you'd say that. I've been hoping you'd ask. Months later, our wedding was small and simple. Mr. Carter stood beside me with tears in his eyes. You finally look peaceful, he whispered. I finally am. After the ceremony, we visited my father's grave together. I placed fresh flowers beside the stone. I kept my promise, Dad, I said quietly. I lost everything once. I took a slow breath. But I didn't stay lost. The wind moved gently through the trees. For the first time in years, the silence felt comforting instead of lonely. As Sophia slipped her hand into mine, I looked toward the future instead of the past. I thought about Daniel. He had lost his freedom because of his own choices. I thought about Emma. I truly hoped she found peace and learned from her mistakes. I no longer carried anger for either of them. Holding on to hate would only have kept me trapped in yesterday. Walking away had set me free. I looked at the company I had built, the family I had found, and the life I had earned through honesty. Then I remembered the frightened man who had once stood in an empty office, believing one signature had destroyed his future forever. He had been wrong. One decision had changed my life. But the choices I made afterward had shaped the man I became. That was the greatest victory of all. And this time, no one could ever take it away.